These are the top wide receivers in PPR leagues. We're going to go through and do our top 24 wide receiver rankings for, again, PPR leagues. If you like PPR stuff, show some love in the comments. Let us know that you want us to keep doing that. But we're going to try to balance PPR and best ball, and I'm going to try to balance not punching Nathan right now because I really, really want to. So that's what we're doing. We got a lot of stuff going on here, so do us a huge favor. Make sure you like this video. It really helps us out. It's super free, super easy, and super cool when you do that. And make sure you also super subscribe. We super appreciate that. If you like content, you'll super want to head over to flockfantasy.com/domain if you haven't already skipped it because I said super a million times. When you use our code domain on Flock Fantasy, you get our rankings, articles, Discord, not only ours, all your favorite creators. And if you choose the Mother Flocker tier, you will get a personalized team review video from us reviewing your fantasy team, and you'll get to be in a listener league with us. And we're doing listener leagues, best ball, dynasty, fantasy. It's going to be awesome. So flockfantasy.com/domain. Starting with the S tier for PPR wide receiver rankings 2023. The first wide receiver we're going to have on this list is Kadarius Toney. I'm just I love clowning you guys.
This is so much fun.
It's Justin Jefferson. It's Jamar Chase. Look, you couldn't have expected anything different here. Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He is going to be the most dominant wide receiver in the NFL this year and for years to come. For that reason, and being a PPR monster, he is going to continue to be at the top of our list for now and probably forever, even when he's retired. And Jamar Chase, playing with Joe Burrow, playing on the Bengals offense, I think everybody gets the drill with Jamar Chase as well. Jamar Chase has insane big playability, like otherworldly big playability, and that drives his value up so much. He obviously has to stay healthy, and that was something last year that we were kind of looking forward, and that's something that we are going to be looking for this year as well. But Jamar Chase is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and especially because of his big playability and because of the amount of targets that he commands, his red zone ability, complete player, Jamar Chase is going to round out the S tier. And then in the A tier, we're going to start with Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, first we have Cooper Kupp here, and people might be saying somewhere out there that this is too high for Cooper Kupp. Look, he's getting old. He's 30 years old now. He'll be 31, by the end of this season even. And, they might be right. Cooper Kupp's not very good. If you look over the last 2 seasons, he was only first in points per game. And then last year he was first again. So obviously there's a big fall off coming. He might only be third this next year. So that's bad. That's why we're fading Cooper Kupp here at third. And we're completely joking. Cooper Kupp is going to continue to dominate. Thank you. Dominate targets.
Didn't know you were joking. I thought you were serious.
In the Rams offense, especially if Matthew Stafford is healthy. And next we have Gabe Davis.
Oh my gosh. If we do that again, people are going to dislike videos.
We do have Tyreek Hill next. Tyreek Hill is another one of those guys who absolutely, you heard him say it this week. He's going to break 2,000 yards. Last year, I believe week 8, he was on track to break 2,000 yards. Tyreek Hill is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Tua loves throwing to him. He's going to get the volume. He's going to be efficient. Tyreek Hill.
Yep. So in the B tier, which I got the big tier, so you're going to kick my butt if I don't speed this up here. But Davante Adams, we are calling our shot here. Davante Adams on Underdog right now is going way, way, way too low at wide receiver 10. I mean, what do we think he's going to do in Vegas's offense? It didn't get worse, that's for sure. Derek Carr was a straight up bad quarterback last year. And from an unrealized air yards perspective, like Davante Adams had a lot of unrealized air yards, and he still was wide receiver 5 on a points per game basis last season. I would wager, is going into a better situation this year with a quarterback that isn't going to be forcing the ball as much. He's going to get the ball to the playmakers, which means Davante Adams. Jimmy Garoppolo is so good at getting to the ball to playmakers in his offense. So we're calling our shot here, top of the B tier, Davante Adams. Next up is going to be Stephon Diggs, who is Stephon Diggs. I don't think he's going to do any less than what he's been doing with Josh Allen for the last multiple years. Gabe Davis, we know, isn't going to take anything away from that. Come on, Stephon Diggs in an elite offense with Josh Allen. What more could you ask for? A.J. Brown is going to be next up. The reason we don't have A.J. Brown at the top of this tier, even though he's going wide receiver 5 on Underdog, is because he's playing alongside Devontae Smith, who does take a little bit away from him from a fantasy perspective. And then you've got the rushing upside of Jalen Hurts to worry about as well. I just don't think he has as high of a ceiling from a wide receiver perspective as Davante Adams and Stephon Diggs do. Then you've got CeeDee Lamb coming up next, who we love CeeDee Lamb. He's really going to be the primary primary threat in that offense. Dalton Schultz leaving, which does leave a lot of targets open for the receivers in that offense. Why did you just delete those guys after CeeDee Lamb? Oh, gotcha. And CeeDee Lamb
was smooth.
Look, yeah, CeeDee Lamb, we love him. He was wide receiver 7 last season, and that's really why he's going to be at the tail end of this tier. Even though we love him in Dynasty, even though we really like him in Fantasy, he hasn't shown the upside that the guys in front of him have yet. So that's why he'll be at the back end of this B tier.
Starting at the C tier, Garrett Wilson had a crap ton of targets last year. Exact number on the screen. He is going to
147.
You have that memorized?
Yeah.
Wow.
Check it right now. Garrett Wilson is going to get that many targets or more. He's still in a wide open offense, but there is at least a very small difference in the Jets offense between this year and last year. They did acquire back-to-back MVP winner Aaron Rodgers, which means that he's going to be throwing Garrett Wilson the ball, which means that Garrett Wilson's situation is better, which means that Garrett Wilson, honestly, we're going to slow our expectations with him a little bit because it is his second year and people are projecting a massive jump. While that is absolutely in the realm of possibilities, 147 targets, you're so good. Absolutely in the realm of possibility. Garrett Wilson, we're going to be careful with. We're going to put him here. He still has wide receiver 1 upside for sure. Amon-Ra St. Brown also does. He's been consistent. He's a target hog. He's a slot receiver. He's going to continue to produce, especially in PPR leagues. Amon-Ra St. Brown, certified stud. He's playing alongside Jahmyr Gibbs. He's playing alongside Sam Laporta. He's playing alongside Jameson Williams after Jameson Williams gets out of timeout. And, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think you're going to get that consistent production. You're going to get all those receptions. And in PPR leagues, that makes him extra valuable.
Slot wide receiver.
Yep. And Jalen Waddle is going to be the next guy. Jalen Waddle, a little bit more boomer bust. So we would fade Jalen Waddle in PPR leagues a little bit more than we would in best ball because the boomer bust in best ball really does come in handy. And in PPR leagues, it's like, he's got a floor of 1 point and with Tyreek Hill, and he also has a ceiling of 45. So you just never know with Jalen Waddle. That being said, he's such a good wide receiver and such an elite talent. You can't rank him anywhere outside of these top receivers because he's playing in a good situation. He's playing alongside Tyreek Hill, which helps him out a lot. And like I said, he is one of the elite premier wide receivers in the NFL. You've got the D tier.
Yeah, starting off here with Chris Olave, we have someone who he inherited, Derek Carr, who's not great. That's not going to help Chris Olave's situation at all. But we're looking at Chris Olave as a rookie having a 29.3% target rate, a 26.7% target share, and over 1,000 yards as a rookie. He's only going to get better, just like every other wide receiver that comes into the NFL. He's going to come back this season, and he's going to have improved even more. He's someone who, if things fall correctly, we saw what Davante Adams did last year, and Chris Olave is not Davante Adams, but Derek Carr supported, as bad as he was, the wide receiver 5 in points per game. So when looking at Devontae Smith next and seeing someone who actually, he does have a very good quarterback. He has a solid quarterback situation. Devontae Smith averaged 15 points per game last year. And the reason we have him this highly is, 1, he's already done it. And 2, if A.J. Brown were to get hurt, Devontae Smith would inherit quite a big target share next year. And we believe he would really do wonders with that. And the next player we're actually pretty low on. If you haven't noticed, T. Higgins is a wide receiver 15. He has been disappointing, to say the least, over the past 2 seasons. He gets hurt. He leaves games early. And this last year, he was wide receiver 26 with 13.1 points per game. The thing is, we have seen T. Higgins produce at more of an elite level when he was wide receiver 12 in points per game last year with 15.7. And you have to always remember, yes, he's playing right beside Jamar Chase. If Jamar Chase gets hurt and Joe Burrow is healthy, T. Higgins would have the lion's share of targets in the Bengals offense, and that's pretty valuable, to say the least.
Yeah. Dropping down to the F tier here, we got Deebo Samuel to start.
Yeah, so this tier is really just going to be a big tier of guys that is pretty much the remaining wide receiver ones in their offense, but they have some question marks that they have to answer, and some of them we haven't even quite seen consistent production yet. But with Deebo Samuel, we have seen it before. He finished as a wide receiver 3 in 2021, had a down year last season, and I think this year you're going to see a bit of an in-between. He has the upside to finish as a low-end wide receiver 1, in my opinion, and he's playing in a Shanahan offense, which is a great, from an upside perspective, really good for Deebo. He's not as great of a true wide receiver as these guys going above him, which is why we have him here in the F tier and a little bit unproven this year. He's got to get back to what he was, not quite what he was doing in 2021, but he needs to produce way better than he did last season. He's got to answer some question marks there. Amari Cooper playing with Deshaun Watson. We're a huge fan of him and what he did last year. I think the biggest question that Amari Cooper is going to have to answer this year is how much can he produce when we expect Nick Chubb to produce at a high level as well in that offense. I think Amari being the target hog that he is, the dominant alpha wide receiver there, Deshaun Watson has shown what he does for the alpha wide receivers in his offenses in the past when he did it with DeAndre Hopkins in Houston, and even for a little stint there, Will Fuller before his suspension. So I think Amari Cooper being definitely the superior talent there in Cleveland, he's going to do well. He has low-end wide receiver 1 upside again. Jerry Jeudy, a guy who has yet to prove that he can stay healthy for an entire season, but he's going into a better situation than he ever has in the past with Sean Payton, an actual coach in Denver now, and Russell Wilson really incapable, I think, of being worse than he was last year. I think he takes a step up this season in fantasy. I think this bodes well for Jerry Jeudy, and this doesn't mean anything for you guys in fantasy, but Marvin Mims, I don't think Marvin Mims does much in fantasy, and that does bode well for Jerry Jeudy. Marvin Mims being that field stretcher, opening up the field for Jeudy in the short to intermediate game is going to be helpful in fantasy for Jeudy specifically. Deontay Johnson's going to be next, who has showcased wide receiver 1 upside in the past. He's not in a great offense, but Kenny Pickett is going to lean on those experienced wide receivers. I think Deontay Johnson's going to be continually faded because of the potential upside that George Pickens has, but from a route running perspective, we think George Pickens is pretty mid, and Deontay Johnson is the guy to gun for in fantasy this year.
Especially in PPR.
Especially in PPR. Talk about a target hog in that offense. If you give Deontay Johnson last season any sort of average touchdown production,
He's a
high-end wide receiver too. Last season was a total outlier. Then at the back end of this tier is going to be DeAndre Hopkins. Absolutely an argument for him to be higher. He's proven it for years and years. But from a fantasy perspective, I wouldn't say it's the best situation for him because of the volume in the offense. How much can Ryan Tannehill really support DeAndre Hopkins being a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1? It's DeAndre Hopkins. He can transcend a lot of situations, but when you look at Kyler Murray last season producing with DeAndre Hopkins versus once he got injured, D-Hop's production went way down. That said, a ton of inaccurate targets for Hopkins in that offense with guys that just did not belong in a starting position for the Cardinals. But this year, I think Hopkins has promising upside, true wide receiver 1. I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, and in the last year here, we're going to start it with Michael Pittman. So with Michael Pittman, look, a lot of people are going to say this is high for Michael Pittman. Here's the thing, and this F and G tier I think is going to get the most comments. When you look on
F and G,
oh no, I said F and G. This F and also G tiers are going to get the most comments. When you look at their projected stats on Underdog Fantasy, all of these guys are like within 10 points per game projected. So this is going to be a lot of subjective argument here. And with Michael Pittman, our subjective argument for PPR leagues is that he had 150 targets last year with Matthew Ryan throwing him the ball. And I use his full name because he committed a crime last year being on the field at all. The dude was a statue. He was Big Ben-esque last season. It was
but worse.
Bad. And Michael Pittman still had 150 targets. He's going to get targets with Anthony Richardson. Yes, Anthony Richardson is a rookie QB. We understand that. We acknowledge that. We know the statistics.
And rushing upside.
We are not ranking him overly high. This is going to be generous for Michael Pittman. We believe in him a lot. Chris Godwin is a guy who has also been faded a lot. He was faded the year he was the wide receiver 2 overall.
It's the Baker Mayfield effect.
He was faded last year because Tom Brady was old. He's been faded pretty much every single year he's been in the league, actually. And yet Chris Godwin, who is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I would put Chris Godwin safely in the top 12, easily.
Yep.
He is going to produce because he is so good in the intermediate game. He's good with short range catches. He's good after the catch. He's going to get his own every single game. He's going to get work in the screen.
Is Chris Godwin good?
I think he's decent.
And not to mention a quarterback-proof slot wide receiver.
He is a quarterback-proof slot wide receiver. Route wins, you look at it, all of it. All of it. And I do think that this year Chris Godwin's going to finish significantly higher than what people think, and that makes him a good value as well. Mike Williams is going to be next. Mike Williams is playing with Justin Herbert still. The problem with Mike Williams is that he's been made of glass for the last year. I guess he was a wide receiver 1 the year before. It really was just last year when his ankles like died essentially. They did draft Quentin Johnston, but in my opinion, I do not think they drafted QJ to replace Mike Williams. So if we're going to fade one of the older Los Angeles wide receivers, it's going to be Keenan Allen. And we've kind of expressed that already. Keenan Allen's going pretty high. We don't even have him in our rankings here. That should tell you what you need to know about Keenan Allen. So
huge shot.
Mike Williams, we think, will continue to produce, though. In a Justin Herbert offense, that's probably going to see some more down the field passing attempts this year. Then we've got, I'll pair them together, Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley.
No, that's Kirk Cousins. I'm kidding.
Shut up.
Continue.
Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. I hate you. With Christian Kirk, he's not going to be affected by Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk got the majority of his production last year out of the slot. Calvin Ridley does not get hardly any of his production out of the slot. They play two completely different games. Christian Kirk has chemistry with Trevor Lawrence already. Christian Kirk also has been on the field the last 2 years, so that helps. So he's going to be here ahead of Calvin Ridley, who, again, they're back-to-back in the same tier, so you can nitpick all you want. Calvin Ridley, we have some concerns about him because he hasn't played. However, everybody knows Calvin Ridley's ceiling. Everybody knows it. It's hard to deny it. And actually, his price isn't terrible. In PPR leagues, though, I think Calvin Ridley is going to be a little bit more boomer bust. So we like him more in best ball, a little bit less in PPR. And we do think Christian Kirk, being that slot wide receiver, is going to be a safer option to get more of the receptions out of the slot. DK Metcalf is going to be next. And again, people are going to say, oh, you ranked DK too low. You ranked him too low. Well, DK, if you ever look at DK's statistics, you'll notice every single year he gives you 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Pretty much every single year. So we're not really predicting a fall off for DK. I'm going to be bold here with my prediction. From a production standpoint this year with DK Metcalf, I'm going to expect about 1,000 yards and about 7 touchdowns. Like that's, I think where we've kind of just, I'm not basing
bold.
that off of any previous statistics or anything like that. But again, I think there are just some guys jumping DK, and DK is going to be sliding down just a little bit, but again, anywhere in this tier, these guys are all super mixable, matchable. So you heard that term here first, trademarked, Dynasty Domain, Fantasy Domain.
Mixable, matchable.
And the last guy on this list is going to be Christian Watson.
A little bit of an honorable mention.
We moved Christian Watson down in PPR leagues because they're PPR leagues. So it means you get a point per reception. Christian Watson, not exactly the best last year at getting targets, let alone receptions. And those two things usually go hand in hand. In best ball leagues, Christian Watson's a completely different story. In PPR leagues, we're going to fade him a little bit more because, like I said, he's going to be a little bit more big play dependent from what it looks like so far. If Christian Watson if theoretically Christian Watson were to establish himself as somebody who could come and get a lot of receptions and targets,
sky's the limit.
The sky is the absolute freaking limit for that guy. If he got that many targets this year, he'd be going in the second round of Dynasty startups. So, again, lots of subjectiveness in these rankings and in PPR leagues especially. Let me remind you, I should have done this at the beginning of the video because people crap on us halfway through. Every single year, the wide receiver rankings and the wide receiver finishes turns out so different than what the ADP is. The top 24 ADP wide receivers right now will not be the top 24 wide receivers at the end of the year. Keep that in mind when you say that these are the worst rankings you've ever seen, because everybody's opinion is pretty much valid on this one. Rankings are very hard. It's very hard to project. You can't project injury, etc. So this is just our best shot. Do us a huge favor and drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed as well. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So you can help us get there. You can join the community. If you want to be a part of our closer-knit community and get all of our exclusive content, flockfantasy.com/domain. When you use our code domain, you get 30% off the entire site. You get rankings from us and some other creators, articles from us and other creators, databases. You get access to our Discord. And if you're in the Mother Flocker tier, which you should be because y'all look like some Mother Flockers to me, I think you're going to get a team review video of your fantasy team. They do. They've got they're winged and everything. So, all right. Code domain. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.